Hello, and welcome to another episode of Two Chicks, One Show. You haven't seen us for a couple of weeks because Agent Carter has been off the air, which is our one show that we're currently doing. My name is Trisha, and she's Kate Calabro. We are the Two Chicks. This week's episode is Agent Carter, episode 4, which is the Blitzkrieg button. It took me a second. I forgot the word Blitzkrieg. Kate, go ahead.
Okay, so in this episode, Howard Stark does a little pop-up, and he surprises everyone, and he returns, and he's in, like, a parlor-like train car, is what they find him in.
He travels in style when he's
Clearly,
traveling like a hobo.
yeah, clearly that's the only way Howard Stark is on the run, so good for him. So, he actually enlists Peggy again to now break into the SSR to help him take back one of his bad babies.
Stop using the word bad babies. We need to stop.
And Peggy soon finds out that Jarvis and Howard Stark have kind of been lying to her this whole time. And then on a different level, Chief Dooley goes off to Germany to talk to some Nazi to find out information that later leads on to Howard Stark being more of an asshole.
Essentially, yeah. And now we had some things about the Russians in previous episodes. It was just little inklings, like the people involved with Leviathan had so far sort of been Russian or Russian-esque.
Yes.
But now we're getting full-on Russian, which is historically interesting because post-World War II is when we stopped trusting the Soviets, who were our allies during World War II, and when we started to worry about Soviet spies. I mean, we were worrying about them in World War II as well, but we started to seriously worry about them post-World War II and then into the early 50s with McCarthyism. The Cold War is, to me, what the Elizabethan and Edwardian eras are to Kate. So
yes,
I'm going to nerd out a little bit about Cold War stuff.
I really don't know much about it, so that's all you. If you want to know, if you want to know the monarchy during the Elizabethan time, I could take care of that, but I don't think we'll be talking about it.
You don't think we're going to be talking about the Tudors at all during Agent Carter?
Probably not, but she is British.
She is British, as is Jarvis, as is Tommy Cooper, who plays Howard Stark. There's lots of British people in the show.
Exactly. So who knows? Maybe one day I'll get to put my hat on.
So Howard Stark is back in town, and he is trying to get Peggy to do even more stuff for him. And of course, this is probably the worst time that he could be here because now that Krasinski is dead, the SSR is in all Howard Stark mode.
Yeah, it's been like the Howard Stark manhunt has extremely escalated after the death of Ray, Agent Ray, as
Ray
Jack.
Krasinski.
Yeah,
His
as
most
Jack
important
points
name,
out.
by the way, is Agent.
Yes, Jack. Oh, we'll get to Jack later. I have such mixed feelings about him, and now I even have mixed feelings about Howard Stark. Before I was just like, Howard, I take you as you are, but now I'm just kind of like, oh, come on, don't be a dick. And so Howard Stark returns. They find him on the docks in his beautiful train car parlor. I don't know.
With a pool table.
Yeah. And so, of course, all of his residence, even now his top secret private residence, is under SSR surveillance, so he has nowhere to go. And so is now forced to stay with Peggy, his cousin, and she somehow sneaks him up, but of course he still gets into the beds of other girls on the floor.
At least two.
Yeah. And he kind of hides out there, and Peggy goes on this mission to find this bad baby. I'm using the word. They actually did not use the words in the episode, so you're probably happy, Trisha.
Yeah, it's one of his inventions. I'm just saying back one of my inventions, and I'm like, good.
Yeah.
We're not calling them bad babies.
And he it's an orb, and he says that this orb, when the switch goes off, will make a blackout. But the problem is he doesn't know how to turn back on the power once he blacks out a city.
Yeah,
so that's
essentially, we're gonna get a little bit into the history here because it's interesting to me as an American who never learned about this stuff in school. During World War II, the Germans were bombing the crap out of London and a lot of other places, but we talk about the London Blitz relatively often. And so Stark invented this thing called the Blitzkrieg button, which whenever the Germans would come in for an air raid, you could flip the switch and all of the lights would go out, and they would be trying to bomb invisible targets because they can't see anything in the dark.
Which is it's very ingenious. It's a very ingenious,
Right.
but yeah.
It makes sense as long as you can flip the switch in the other direction, which according to him you can't do.
But then we find out that it's all a lie.
Yes,
So
eventually we find out that what that or really what out that Howard and Jarvis are lying, um, because it's.
I'm back.
Can you hear me still, Kate? Okay. I
Yeah,
was gonna say I'm having network connection problems, so this could
you
be
went
a
black, so I
interesting
don't
show.
know what you were talking about, but I am back now. I can see movements.
All right. So I was saying that Peggy eventually figures out that that Howard and Jarvis are lying, and she figures it out because of Jarvis, because he's a terrible liar, and he has a tell, which is the
And it's
ear
like the
pulling.
most awkward tell in the
Kate's gone
world.
again. This is not going well for me.
Am I gone? Because I can see you.
Nope,
Are
you're
you
back.
there? Yeah. And I was saying, it's
Yep.
like the most awkward.
Okay. You good now?
I'm fine. You were live the whole time. So anyway, what I was saying is that it's like the most awkward tell because it's not like like someone like twitches their eye where you really have like he just rubs his whole ear. It's like okay. So Peggy finds out that he through Jarvis's ear rubbing that him and Howard have been lying.
Yes.
So she goes in and she does steal the orb. I'm gonna call it an orb. Um, and she flicks the switch because from Jarvis's ear rubbing out that the switch is not the only switch. And out comes this vial of blood. And all I could think about was Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton wearing vials of blood.
Of course you could. And of course Peggy knows immediately that it's Steve's. What I thought was interesting was that she, just from knowing that Jarvis and Howard are lying, she flips the switch.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that.
I don't know if I would have either. Like, there is a chance that you are going to knock out power to the tri-state area, and it will
Yeah,
never come back.
yeah.
But
So
that's Peggy. So
good for you, Peggy. So then
yeah.
she goes home. She confronts Howard. She punches him in the eye, which was kind of badass. And she's just like, "Get out of my apartment." And she gives like this big speech, which I think it's a turning point for the series and for Peggy, who has kind of just been drifting since Steve Rogers' death. And she goes like, "Steve gave his life for the SSR," which we later find out he really didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
He's on ice. Um, and she kind of, I don't know if she's ashamed of what she has done with Howard, but I feel like she feels extremely betrayed, and I think she feels extremely off track. Because for her, she's now realizing that everything Howard's doing is because he wants to put money in his pockets, which I don't know if is true. I don't want it to be true, but it is Howard Stark. So I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
conflicted.
and I think Howard has a lot of similarities to his son in future movies where, like, Tony was always making money and becoming a playboy and being rich and stuff, but eventually he. So I think that's a big deal. I think that's going to happen for Howard too. I think this might be, and as much as this is a turning point for Peggy, I think it could also be a turning point for Stark, and this may be when he decides to start Shield.
Yeah, because I think Howard does care about Peggy. I think Peggy and Jarvis are probably his only friends in the whole entire world. And I think he is upset. So I don't
Hmm.
know. We'll see. Hopefully Howard turns around. He fixes everything. Clearly they
Well,
become
we
friends again
know that
because
they do together start Shield.
yeah,
Yeah,
so that's what I was just going to say. Clearly
clearly they make up.
yeah. So that's the Howard Stark chunk of it.
Yes. Then there's the part that you love, which is the SSR part of it.
Yeah. So SSR, Daniel, Mr. Crutch. is really work. He's doing like hardcore police work. He picks up this guy at the docks. He interviews him, gives this whole spiel about when he came back from the war and how people clapped for him, but they were clapping for him because he came back wounded and not because he just served in the war. Trying to like appeal to this drunken dock guy, and it just goes completely over the guy's head. So then, of course, Jack is left in charge while Chief Dooley, right? What's his name?
Yeah, it's Julie.
Chief Dooley goes off to find the Nazi. I don't really, what was the purpose? Oh, because the two guys that had the things were
Yeah,
Russian?
it's the two guys who had the laryngotomy scars. They're both listed among the dead of this one
Mm-hmm.
battle in which a lot of Russians were killed,
Mm-hmm.
supposedly by Nazis. And so those Nazis were, according to records, whatever, under the command of this lieutenant colonel or whatever. So that he goes to see him to figure out what
Mm-hmm.
happened.
Okay, so that's happening. Jack's in charge. And through Jack, with his burger and beer and booze, gets the dock guy to say that it was a nicely dressed man and a brunette that came and found the bad babies. So Daniel's starting to kind of put the pieces somewhat together. So he takes down the picture of the blonde and starts coloring in her hair. I don't know why it's taken them so long to do this,
Right, to
but
figure out that it's Peggy. I mean, it
not to
is
figure out
from
that,
behind.
yeah, not to figure out that it's Peggy, just to be like, well, maybe she's wearing a wig. Like, if you can't, like, find this blonde anywhere, and no one else has seen this blonde except for in this nightclub, maybe you should, I don't know, it was a disguise? I don't, but whatever. So I think Daniel's starting slowly to figure it out.
Yes.
Whereas Jack and Dooley, I think, are just so concerned with Stark that they're not even concerned about this blonde anymore.
Right, and at the same time, Jack the entire episode is giving Daniel crap
Mm-hmm.
for constantly interrogating this guy who, he didn't see anything. What are you talking about? This is stupid. What we're doing real police work, and I'm like, so is he.
Yeah. He's doing actually the most police work out of, like, he went and he got prints from the phone, like things that should have been done the night of. And, like,
Right.
Daniel's doing it 3 days later. So I'm not really sure. But then there's this great scene with Peggy and Jack. And I don't, part of me wants to, like Jack and just be like, he's just a dick because it's the 40s. And then part of me is just like, no, there's no redeeming qualities to this man.
Right. I
So
mean, the whole time he was giving his speech, part of me was like, oh, dude, really? And then part of me was like, Kate's gonna hate this.
I know. Like, it's like, I really, my whole thing is I really didn't like it, but then in a way, I felt like it wasn't necessarily Jack's words. I feel like he's telling Peggy this is how the world is, and he
Yeah,
just
I
so
mean, he
happens to live
literally
in it.
says, this is how the
Yeah.
world works.
So Jack pretty much asks Peggy, why do you work here? You're the only thing that you do is, get the lunch and answer phone calls. Why do you work here? And Peggy, gives some, I guess passive aggressive comment to Jack saying, well, I'm curious about what's so and so is going to get for lunch. And
And
he
she also
just,
says democracy,
oh
but
yeah.
she gives the
And
real
then,
answer first.
yeah. And then Jack pretty much says, well, no, in this world, a man, you will never be equal to a man.
A man will
And
never
it
see you as his
wasn't
equal.
equal, yeah. So I think it's the way he delivered it. Like, if he did it in this cocky sense, I would be like, oh, he's just a dick. But he did it almost as, like, being honest and giving her an opinion, but not
It was a
necessarily,
matter-of-fact statement.
yeah. And I think it more parallel to what happened between her and Howard versus what's happening between her and Jack. Howard didn't consider her an equal because he lied to her.
Right. But then, at the same time, in the next scene, that's where she confronts Stark, and he gives his whole speech where he talks about where he came from and the fact that his parents didn't have much money and that he worked his way up, and that one of the only ways to do that when you are on unequal footing in society, if you come from a lower social class, if you have
Mm-hmm.
you're judged by your race, your sex, your anything, is to lie. And
Yeah.
we actually then see her lie to Howard.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been lying to her male coworkers this entire time. So he's
Yeah.
not wrong.
Who, Howard?
Howard, no, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
The only way that she's been able to do any of the stuff that she's been doing is because she's been lying.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like everyone was kind of at fault. Jack's still an asshole, but right now so is Howard, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and these are also men with non-progressive viewpoints.
Yeah.
Like
So,
they see the world and they think, I can't change it. It's just how it is, and I'm going to do my best to work in it the way it is. Whereas Peggy sees the world as Steve saw it, or she's trying to anyway,
yeah.
which is that the world isn't inherently bad.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about Jack. I haven't liked Jack at all, really.
They
But
haven't really given him much in the way of redeeming qualities.
yeah, and I don't know why I found that a little bit more redeemable, how he was just honest with her. I think at least one thing Jack has been consistently is honest. So
Yeah,
I
and this
think,
whole episode was him giving, like, just, you know, throwing truth bombs at people. Like, he was
yeah,
talking to Daniel and saying, like, not everybody comes back from the war wanting a hug.
yeah, which is true. Like, and they said, he went through some crap in the war. I hope you find out what this crap was since they keep bringing it up. But I don't know. I think the only thing I like about Jack is that he's honest. So we'll see. But
Yeah,
that was a pretty good scene.
that was a pretty good scene. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
So
because he also says, like, when she sneaks into the room because she's hiding, he says, "What are you doing here? I thought I had said only the men had to work overtime."
yeah, and she's the only woman in the office.
Yes.
So
I don't know. It's interesting.
any
This episode felt very much like a midpoint, like we're crossing the middle and
yeah
going into the back, which we are. This is the fourth of 8 episodes, so we're
yeah.
crossing that
So it's right.
midpoint. It's the folding of the book, you know. The second
Because it's
half
not
is going to
like
be.
not anything really big happened, but there was still enough of the story being pushed forward.
The one big thing that did happen is something that will, I believe, be bigger in the next episode, which is that Dottie. Now, okay, Kate is going to want me to point this out. That after last week's episode, we've sort of been in a non-predicting kind of mode, just like letting the show play out because I've been enjoying it. After the episode, she did say, I wanted to make one prediction, which is that Dottie is a spy, because they spend so much time with her, and she's an unnecessary character, unless she turns out to be really important. So I think she's a spy. So in this episode, we find out she's a spy.
So I was right, world.
So she was right.
No one knew it but Trisha, but I was right.
So there you go. You got it from me. Kate was right. All bow down. Okay, now let's move on. Because Dottie seems to be a very particular kind of spy.
This is true.
That she's probably Russian. Or if she's not Russian, she was trained in Russia. And that her introduction as a spy is I think it's almost identical to when we first see Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, attack people in Iron Man 2, where she does the jumping on the wall, sitting on the dude, swinging around and breaking his neck.
Yeah, and I read somewhere on the internet, I'm not sure, Iron Man 2 is not my favorite movie, so I don't know a lot of details about it, but Dottie also introduces herself as a ballerina, and it's kind of a code thing from the Red Room Academy to introduce yourself as a ballerina, so that's another connection.
In the Black Widow comic book mythology, at least in one version of it, Natasha believes she was raised in like a dance studio. I don't know this for 100%. I just know what I've read or heard because I haven't read the Black Widow comics. My apologies. Is that she was raised? She believes she was adopted or taken into this place where she was trained as a ballerina for years and years and years, and then eventually she joined whatever organization she joined, which I believe is just the KBG. But so she believes that is her past. In reality, all of the ballerina stuff was implanted in her memory in the Red Room.
Yes.
So she was actually spent her entire childhood training, and then they gave her implanted memories so that she didn't know what she went through as a kid. So that's the same thing with Dottie. Another reason why everyone's like totally Red Room.
Yes, so that's probably going to happen. And we get a lot more Dottie in next week's episode.
Yes,
So,
and there's some belief, and some of that belief is mine, that the Red Room is going to be playing a major role in Age of Ultron. It
okay.
looks from the last trailer, you see dance like ballerina stuff, and it seems like either Black Widow is going to find out about the Red Room, or she's just going to be remembering being a
Yeah,
ballerina or something.
I remember a lot of people on the internet said that there's going to probably be a little bit of a Black Widow origin story within Age of
In Age of
Ultron.
Ultron.
So,
So I think introducing the idea of the Red Room as early as the 1940s in Agent Carter is just a nice little Easter egg
hmm
for people who also watch the movies. Like, it's not necessary for you to understand that going into the movie, but if you watch
yeah.
the show, it's cool.
hmm
So I think that'll be cool if they end up pushing that the same way, just like they're introducing Inhumans in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before they do the movie. Nifty stuff.
Yeah, Marvel's always, sticking everything together. So,
Tossing stuff together, back and
yeah,
forth.
yeah.
So
So,
yeah, Dottie was probably the most interesting thing, and she only happens for about 5 seconds.
yeah, Dottie, like, well, there's this dude wants to kill Peggy, and Dottie ends up killing him. I don't
Yeah.
know what the dude was, or I don't know really, I didn't follow that storyline too
Um,
much.
yeah.
And since he's dead, I'm really not worried about it.
He was the one who ran the group of he was like the boss of the group of dudes that smuggled Stark in. So
Oh,
when
okay.
his two thugs showed up back at the place and they were like, he brought a girl and like 5 guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, he's the one that goes. They tell him who it was, like the butler, and they're follow the butler. So he follows the butler and he finds Peggy, and that's why.
Yeah.
There
So
you go.
that guy's
So he's
dead,
dead.
so it doesn't really matter. It's over. Um, there was also a little Stanley cameo this week, which was very cute as always. I couldn't help but just have a big smile on my face when Stan came on the screen.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Eh.
I thought it'd be funnier if he asked for the comic section, but that was just me. That's how
Yeah,
I
no,
would do it.
he was like saying, "Can I borrow like what?" I was like, "Oh, no, not the comics.
Yeah, see, like that, I think that would have made sense, but yeah.
Marvel Comics was not publishing in the comic section in the 1940s, but DC Comics was, so maybe that's
No, maybe that's why. And I guess what we should mention is at the end of the episode, SSR has those old school
has a
texting
typewriter.
machines.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden, as Dooley's in his office, he hears the typing going on. And
yes, and
it's
it
just
doesn't show
like,
you what it
whoo.
says,
Yeah.
but in the previously on section,
hmm
it does specifically show the scene with the typewriter where
Where
he
it says,
says Peggy Carter or Agent
yeah.
Carter.
So
So
I'm assuming it's going to say, what's the status on Agent Carter? Or
yeah,
something, and Dooley and Jack are going to be like, oh my god, Daniel was right. And Daniel's going to be like, I knew it, I drew her hair in right here, that looks just like Peggy. And I'm like, okay.
but my
That's how
guess
it's
is
going to
that Daniel is at least going to try to help
take
her.
her. Hopefully. We'll
Well,
find
he's got a
out.
bit of a crush.
Yeah, well, she's committing treason.
She is committing treason, and he is like a good old boy, but still.
We'll see. We'll see what Danny Boy does, because he's gonna figure it out next week, I'm pretty
He
sure.
really is. He's totally going to figure it out. While she's away in Russia with the Howlings, which
Yeah.
awesome.
What? I didn't hear you.
I said, which awesome, the Howling Commandos.
Yeah. So next week, I guess you watched the preview. Good
No, I
job,
didn't. I
Trisha.
just knew that's what was going on next week.
Oh, because you read my notes.
No, I also knew that was what was going on next week.
So next week on Agent Carter, Peggy, dun dun dun, Peggy heads to Russia.
Da-da-da.
Shocker. We've only been talking about Russia for the past episode, and she meets up with the Howling Commanders. So, but not Bucky.
No, well, since Bucky is dead,
Yeah,
and
just like Captain America.
dead, she's meeting up with only one of the Howlings that we see in Captain America. So it's just Dum Dum, whatever his name is,
Yeah.
the dude with the bowler hat and the mustache.
And the mustache.
Yeah, my favorite.
Mhm.
But anyway, so she's meeting up with him and several other of the Howling Commandos. comic book canon commandos, but not ones that we saw in Captain America, the first Avenger. So new ones.
Oh, exciting. So I guess we'll see
Yay.
what. Is she going to Russia by her, like, the SSR would not send her to Russia. Like,
No,
she takes.
well, they might send her to Russia if they need like an undercover person and she's got contacts there or something.
I guess.
They
I
would
just
send
feel
her
like.
begrudgingly.
Yeah. Or they're like,
Uh,
oh, we need a woman. Send Peggy.
we only have one, so let's send Peggy.
Yeah. Like, I bet you, like, her and Jack go. And they're like, okay, Peggy, you pretend to be Jack's wife undercover. And she's like, okay.
Yeah,
Because it looks
maybe.
like. I watched the preview and it looks like Jack is in Russia with them, but I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. Maybe they pretend to be some sort of rich couple at the ballet.
Yeah. And then
Um,
that's when shit goes down.
there you go. Shit going down at the ballet. It's a
We
weird.
just wrote the whole episode.
There you go. That's the
No
whole.
need to watch it. That's what's going to happen.
That's it. It's gonna be nice to see her, especially if it's her and Jack meeting up with the Howlings. It'll be
Hmm.
fun to see her with a group of guys who see her as their equal
Yeah.
and who don't
Or,
like
like,
Jack.
not even equal. She was ranked higher than them. Like, she was
Yeah.
kind of like their boss.
She was
So,
she was ranked higher than Cap too. Actually, technically
yeah.
Cap was ranked higher than her, but
Well, he was a captain, so yeah.
she was an agent. I don't really know how that works.
Yeah. I didn't really know he was a captain, though. I thought that was just what they called him, but I
No,
guess that's
they gave him the promotion to captain
after I became superhuman.
after he became superhuman, and then they just stuck him in all of the stuff. So
Yeah.
he really was a captain. He was just sort of a for show captain.
Yeah. That's what I always thought, but then they call him captain still, so I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah, he's got like captain stuff. And
He's got, yeah, captain stars.
they're bars. There's two bars. They're connected by bars. That's captain.
Sure.
In the Army. It's lieutenant in the Navy. It's very weird.
Okay, yeah. Trisha knows that.
I
don't.
was almost in the Air Force, dude.
She was almost in the Air Force.
Yeah.
I've been on an airplane.
I have also been on an airplane. Yeah, so that was the episode. I mean, there wasn't a ton going on, but it was some cool
Yeah.
character stuff. And it very much felt like a middle point where now Peggy has sort of her new personal marching orders.
Yeah.
The SSR has their literal marching orders. And Dottie has her sleeper cell marching orders.
Yeah, I'm
And
curious
Howard's
about.
walking around with a black eye.
Yeah, there wasn't enough Angie in this episode.
I love
Just kinda
Angie.
knocking on doors. There wasn't enough Angie. There wasn't enough Jarvis. There really wasn't a lot of Jarvis in this episode. And there really wasn't a lot of Peggy. It wasn't a very Peggy-driven episode.
No, it was a lot of everyone.
Yeah, it was a communal ensemble.
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 It's assembly spelled like in French. Anyway, yeah.
Alright.
So that was pretty much the episode. I mean, there's not really much to talk about besides, do you want to start making predictions now because you're worried about people thinking that you're not smart?
I just made a prediction. I just predict that, Jack
Right,
was
you
going to
wrote
go.
the whole episode, so.
Yeah, so, next week it's going to say written by Trisha Ennis and Kate Calabro. Thanks to Two Chicks, One Show.
From 1 week before this episode aired. We shot it really fast.
Reshoots! They're doing reshoots right now.
They're watching the episode and just writing it all down
Yeah.
as they go. That's what's happening. We're affecting Hollywood right now.
Every day.
Every day. Every damn day. All right. I think we should wrap it up because we're digressing
Now
a
we're just
lot here.
rambling. Yeah, now we're just
We're
rambling.
just rambling at this point. We're very tired. At least I'm very tired, and we're just gonna talk. All right, so we'll do it. I promise. We're gonna stop now. That'll do it for this episode of Two Chicks, One Show. We will be back next week on Wednesday at 6 p.m. right here, or you can watch us on the All Geek to Me TV YouTube page or on allgeek2me.net, which is the site that sponsors all of this nonsense.
Crazy.
And we maybe will be live tweeting the show next Tuesday at 9, which is when Agent
Maybe.
Carter airs on ABC. Every Tuesday, 9 p.m., at least for the next 4 weeks, and then it goes back to being Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Mhm.
We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
See ya.